Red Polly, Red Polly.
Dusty.
Blue Poncho, Blue Poncho.
Tupac.
Street.
Hey, Wilson Hoosier. Hey, Elvis.
Blue 58. Go.
All righty, here we go. Health Matters, Episode 9, Week 5. Brandon, take it away.
All right, Tyler, start us off with that injury roundup this week.
Yeah, I'd say one of the biggest injuries, guys, is Matt Milano, linebacker for the Bills. We all saw it. Fractured his leg. Also looks like he has possibly some ligament damage. Coach has come out, said that he needs surgery and that his season is over, but hasn't confirmed the exact ligament damage. Doc, what are you thinking after seeing that video?
Yeah, this is a crushing blow for the Bills, and they're really getting banged up at this point. And Matt Milano's one of the best linebackers in the league. But from the injury side, it's pretty. When you look at a leg fracture plus having a ligament, my guess is that it's a tibial plateau injury or right near the knee joint, because you can see a tibial plateau injury and also have an avulsion of the ligament, or meaning the bone actually tears off with the ligament, and those can go together. And so that's at least my best guess of what this leg fracture is, a tibial plateau plus some type of ACL, because it was stated they had some type of ACL issue. But we'll await confirmation to see what he's really got going on. Bottom line is, unfortunately, Bills fans, Milano's season is going to be over. And it's just another crushing blow on the banged up side for the Bills.
Keeping in line with the Bills defensive tackle, Daquan Jones, he tore his pec in that game as well. He's going to need surgery to get that fixed, probably ending his season too, Doc.
Yeah, usually that's season ending. We have had some pec tears, depending on where it is, that we've rehabbed without surgery. But in general, we get these fixed. Why? The pec is almost a muscle of necessity in the NFL, because you're always pressing, pushing, lifting, inclines, benches. It's a most important muscle for that internal rotation of the arm and pressing. So we usually fix them unless it's in an area where it's non-operative.
Especially that defensive tackle being the guy pushing that O-lineman off of him to get the running back.
Yeah, no question. It's always that grappling, the grasping, everything else. It's just a big problem.
And moving on, we had Daniel Jones go down in the fourth quarter with a neck injury. The reports are pretty optimistic that he's going to be playing this week. Doc, you saw the video. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I initially thought this was just kind of a stinger type of injury, just based on where his injury and the mechanism was, where you kind of stretch the nerves that come out of the neck, the stinger of the cervical nerves that come out of the neck, and end up with some transient numbness in the arm. It usually gets better, but clearly they were worried about a little bit more. Usually stingers were able to return back to play the same game pretty quickly within a few minutes after it resolves, and you pass a bunch of strength tests. But certainly there could be something else on. Wait on the MRI findings, but I don't expect anything concerning for him, and I would expect him to be back this week, barring anything on the MRI.
That's good news for the Giants. With Saquon being out, they need all the offensive power that they can get. Moving on to another quarterback, Anthony Richardson for the Colts. Grade 3 AC sprain. We just saw Derek Carr go down with an AC. He came back the next week, albeit didn't play great. But it looks like Anthony Richardson, they're debating on putting him on IR. So possibly 4 games, maybe if they don't put him on 3 to 4. What are you thinking, Doc?
Yeah, 3 to 4, probably a short-term IR, 4 weeks. Grade 3 AC sprain, they hurt. Takes a long time to get these ligaments calmed down the top of the shoulder, especially his throwing shoulder. If it was a non-throwing shoulder, we'd see him back probably within a week. You can do some injections. But not only do you need the pain, inflammation to calm down, you need the stability there to be solid. And the capsule of that AC joint just has to heal. And it can take 4 to 6 weeks to get this to calm down and for him to get some zip on the ball again.
One of the games we'll be previewing later was the Cowboys game with the 49ers. Their starting linebacker, Leighton Vander Esch, he went out with a neck injury, kind of scary hit early in the game. Micah Parsons bumped him with his head down, and x-rays were negative, but he does have a history of cervical stenosis surgery in 2019, so a little bit of scare. Hopefully the MRI comes back clean.
Yeah, absolutely. I know they're toying with some IR with him as well in terms of getting this neck to rest and calm down the inflammation that you can have. Cervical stenosis is the real deal, though, and that's where there's a really small canal for the spinal cord as it comes out of your brain. And the spinal cord, obviously, very important to run every muscle and everything in the body. So, with that stenosis, you don't take this lightly in the NFL. And stenosis is something we looked at very closely anytime players had this, because there can be risk of re injury. But clearly has been doing very well. He's an incredible player. So, hopefully, we'll see him back there pretty soon.
And Panthers offensive guard Chandler Zavala, he was carted off due to a neck injury. His tests were negative, allowed him to fly home with the team.
Yeah, he went to the hospital in Detroit, and then actually was cleared from the hospital. Came back, went back with the team on the plane. All of that excellent news.
Huge loss for the Lions was Emmanuel Mosley, cornerback. Right ACL tear, guys. This is a tough one. This was his first game back after tearing his left ACL last year in week 5. So almost exactly a year. We know that when you tear one, you have a higher risk of tearing the other. Doc, you treat these all the time. What are you thinking?
I feel bad for Emmanuel. He's just getting back, first game back, 2 week 5 injuries in a row. Come on, are you kidding me? I mean, this is like, it's pretty rare to happen, but it can. Once you have one ACL tear, there are other things that happen, not the least of which is the other side ACL injury. So we're going to see 7 to 9 months. We'll see him back in camp, unfortunately, but going to get it fixed. He's a good player. We'll see him back, but really going to have to work on him in the off season, because he's got a predisposition for this to happen. And we got to just watch this closely and make sure he's optimized from a core, from jump landing, from all the things we look at before official return to play.
Yeah, you never want to see that guy back-to-back years with the injuries. That's no good for him. Moving on to the playmaker side of the ball, one of the most exciting guys in the league, Justin Jefferson, the wide receiver for the Vikings. He went down with a hamstring on Sunday, and that's a scary one. We have a lot of hamstrings this year. They're not looking to rush him back, so they're going to wait it out and see how he goes, because he's a big piece for them, so they don't want to keep that nagging on all season long.
Yeah, the hamstring for Justin, he's a great player, obviously. They don't want to rush him back. You rush back, we've done a ton of this work on the hamstring. He's going to re-injure it. So we don't want him to come back too early. Timeline TBD, but I would say 3+ weeks at a minimum.
Yeah, that's going to be a long time for that offense.
And Cowboys wide receiver Cavante Turpin, he suffered a high ankle sprain. Early reports are suggesting he'll be out for 4 to 6 weeks.
Zay Jones, Jags wide receiver, injured his right knee. He's missed the previous 2 weeks for a knee injury. Undergoing an MRI, have not come out with a confirmation yet, but definitely a hit to the Jags team, who started to look good this week.
We have the Cardinals running back James Conner. He twisted his knee on a long run, and they're still unsure about his time off, but they did sign and running back Tony Jones Jr. from the Saints today, so that's not a good outlook for short term. So keep an eye on that one as well.
I'd say one of the biggest injuries that everybody was watching was Travis Kelce this weekend. Came out, a lot of different opinions going around, from a foot to a high ankle, ended with what looks to be a low ankle sprain. As they say, he shook it off to return, got a touchdown. Something to keep an eye on this week. Definitely want to keep an eye out on his practice reports and how he's doing this week to see if he plays. They have a short week because they play on Thursday.
Yeah, it was kind of an awkward injury. If you really look at that right ankle, sort of in the ankle, maybe the upper part of the foot was the initial, or at least the energy of the injury mechanism occurred. And it's been back and forth from what the team is saying, a high ankle, a foot, and low ankle. I mean, regardless, there's probably some level of a sprain, likely to the outer part of the ankle. We'll probably see him back this week. We'll watch his practice report, and we'll watch how he does in snaps overall this weekend.
And rounding out the injury roundup this week, we have Cowboys special team ace CJ Godwin. He's going to be out for the season after tearing that pec. It's a shame to see that. The special teams guys really energized the locker room, and to see one of them go out for the season is just a tough hit for them.
Yeah, again, 2 pecs in 1 week definitely could happen, but special teams, another grappling position when you got to get down the field fast, and that's part of it. You're moving so fast as special teams. When that arm comes out at the side, it can really put what we call an eccentric load across that pec muscle, which is when the pec is shortening but the arm is lengthening. So the pec's contracting, but the arm's lengthening is your centric load. Number one mechanism to injure your pec. Actually, the number one is on the bench press, believe it or not. And that by far is the number one injury in terms of how to tear your pec muscle. But again, that's when you're going down on the bench. You're contracting your muscle, but you're lengthening the muscle unit through your arm. So that's how these happen in special teamers. Happen the same way with Goodwin, but he'll get surgery and these come back really quite well.
Yeah, keep an eye out on the Predictors.com for all the injury news throughout the week so you can stay up to date. Ryan, tell us who's in the concussion protocol this week.
Yeah, we had a few players go into protocol this week. Starting off, we had Bills tight end Dalton Kincaid that went into protocol. We have wide receiver for the Texans, Tank Dell. Antonio Hamilton, cornerback for the Cardinals. Mo Alley Cox, tight end for the Colts, as well as Juju Smith-Schuster with a wide receiver for the Patriots.
Hoping all those guys recover well from the brain injury and don't miss more than a week. Let's dive into some of the games this week and get into some of the in-depth injury news and things that are happening. Tyler, the Lions-Panthers, that was a good game, but that was a bus score that was lower, beating a bus score that was higher. What do you think on that?
Yes, both teams were dealing with a lot of injuries. You know, the Lions, they were without their lead wide receiver, Amon-Ra. And the Panthers, though, their secondary was unbelievably banged up. So when you look at it, both teams had some pretty pivotal players not on the field. And we see that a little bit in the beginning of the season with the banged up scores. Shows great health versus not great health, but sometimes the ones with not great health can overcome just based on talent early on in the season and getting those teams together and how they all mesh. So it was a blowout by the Lions. I don't know if anyone expected that, but pushed the Panthers to they still waiting for their first win there.
And if you head to our website at thepredictors.com, it's interesting here. You can see the banged up Panthers in the secondary. Like you mentioned, Tyler, we know that. And against a good golf quarterback, I mean, he's going to pick that apart all day long. If you now have a cornerback 2, a 3, a 4, your 1-2's out, etc., going to pick that all day long. And that's where we distill this down in the website for you so you can understand if you got a great quarterback and you got a terrible secondary that's now banged up, guess what's going to happen? Exactly what the Lions did to the Panthers.
The game everyone watched last night, the 49ers Cowboys, that was a big one. You got the healthiest team in the league stomping up on the Cowboys, and they lost 4 big starters in this game. What's the breakdown on this one, guys?
Yeah, huge problem for the Cowboys. Again, this just seems to happen to the Cowboys several years in a row now. It happens by week 3, by week 5, by week 7, and health matters. And unfortunately, the Cowboys can't sustain it. If they can get healthy, if they can get some reasonable free agency, or if they can get some of these guys back off IR, which they might have a few more coming, we'll still see the Cowboys as contenders. But this is not good news for them at all, Cowboys Nation.
On the flip side, the 49ers look unbelievable. Their health is up there. They have everyone, and their offense looks unstoppable. I mean, they're fantastic.
Yeah. It's just, you got a team that they've been practicing with all spring, all summer. They remained healthy. You see the results. It's amazing. Again, check it out on the Predictors. You can see the breakdown of how healthy the 49ers are in every discipline. It's amazing. Check it out.
Okay, guys, let's move it overseas now. We had the Jags and the Bills playing in Tottenham Stadium, and they had a lot of complaints afterwards about the field quality and the turf. Tell us the stats on that, guys.
The Predictors has put this out before, and we continue to put it out again. Guess what? Slit film is not great. And guess where we got slit film? Tottenham. Slit film was installed just a couple years ago. Then they put it over a grass pitch in Tottenham. It's actually a great video in terms of how they installed this thing. It's absolutely impressive, but this turf matters. Our data shows it. Our stats show it. And unfortunately, the Bills players were just complaining left and right in the locker room at halftime. A lot of the reporters are listening, the beat reporters there, all the others. And it's all over the media now. And I think that it's a real concern they have.
Yeah, and Von Miller, he was just returned from injury. He's been a huge advocate in the NFL turning to grass fields. And according to the data from the predictors.com, we see roughly an average of 15.7% higher rate of injuries per game on slit film compared to any other playing surface there is.
15.6%. It's real. It's a real number. It's different for different body groups, but you just look at the number of injuries. We just look at his injuries. We don't sort it out contact, non-contact. We're looking at injuries in this thing because that's what matters at the end of the day. Who's taking your player out and how do they come back? I got to tell you, I mean, look at this. This is from The Athletic this morning. Why not every Bills injury is turf related? All pro linebacker Milano went down the first quarter, was done for at least the day. Jaguars left tackle Walker Little went down the first quarter, didn't return. Then check this out. Bills left tackle Deion Dawkins, defensive tackle Ed Oliver, edge rushers Leonard Floyd, Kingsley Jonathan, nickelback Taron Johnson, all needed trainers, 10 of them on the field at various points went back in. Johnson called the artificial turf terrible. Take that turf out, especially that one. I'd rather play on grass, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the players kept going from there. So I think they're onto something. We know they're onto something. We've got the data to prove it.
At what point does the NFL have to see this and make this change? It's been now over a year. Everyone's complaining about it. Cooper Kupp really started, I think, this whole. I don't want to say he started the whole thing, but he really made it as prominent as it is with his ankle injury. And now they've just touched on it every single week. At some point, the NFL has to step up and do something about it and change it.
They're looking at it, Tyler. We'll see. I mean, it continues to be a massive debate out there. There's not an easy solution with about half the teams with turf, half with grass. And now you got some overseas now with turf instead of grass at Tottenham. So it's real. The players are right. You know, if you ask some folks like Bakhtiari and you ask others, they're all over it. They're all over this turf versus grass debate. And I would say stay tuned. I think there's going to be something coming. There may not be the ability to get every field to grass. It's just the reality where these stadiums are, how they are, what they are. Maybe down the road, maybe with some technology, maybe with massive investment from the owners. But what would be nice is to kind of get it down to a consistent product. And that's what we've been advocating for is let's find one or two of the top surfaces in turf, find the ones that have the least injuries. And those are the ones the player consistently can feel, play on. We have the Clegg test, which shows how the turf bounces and how it performs and the stress strain pattern of the turf. And that would be all the same across all the stadiums. So that's at least what I would advocate for. We'll see what the NFL does.
Well, you think from a financial standpoint, everyone's worried about how much it's going to cost to put it in, but the financial standpoint on players that you're paying millions and millions of dollars to play and they're sitting on the sideline and people pay tickets, I mean, that's going to be a bigger financial strain eventually.
No question. I mean, this is that turf's expensive. It's big business. I get it, but so is football. And we got to take care of our players first. We are all about our patients first, our player athletes, our player patients. That's who we got to be about first. I stick by it, and the numbers stick by it. We have to do something.
And as we know, it goes a long way when the NFL does something. It trickles down to college and youth sports. So it's going to protect athletes at all ages. So let's keep an eye on this as it develops. Another thing we've been waiting to develop is Saquon Barkley getting back on the field for the Giants. Tyler, this frustration you talk about every week, when is he coming back?
Yeah, Brandon, this is a hot topic because when they came out, they said it was an ordinary ankle sprain, and we said it. You know, if you look at Doc's Twitter, he went out and he said, this is a high ankle sprain. This is not an ordinary ankle sprain. Eventually it comes out that it was a high ankle sprain. And our data shows 3 to 4 games, 3.8 games, you're going to be out. He did this. He's been out for 3 games. We're going on week 4. It's just like the data said at the Predictors. We knew it was going to happen. And here we are. And he's one of those guys, like Doc said, that can come back and, you know, maybe he doesn't fall off as much, but this is a much bigger injury than they alluded to start with.
No question. 3.8 games. He's going to be down 12, 18, 20% first 2 games back. Data speaks. He's had it before. You know, he thinks Saquon's got some ability to maybe beat those averages. The data's the average, but he can do better than the average just because of an incredible player he is. But the averages are there for a reason. So this was easily predictable. Check it out at thepredictors.com again. It's right there.
Let's move on to some fantasy performers. Some of these guys coming off an injury and seeing how they're doing. Who was your best performer for this week, Tyler?
Had to be Cooper Kupp coming off that hamstring. He's been out a while. He came in 8 receptions, 118 yards. That's a big fantasy play for a receiver who's coming off a hamstring. Normally they're down a little bit. And so for him to be in the position he is, in that slot position, get all those receptions and pick up those yards, that's a great play by him.
Yeah, showing they probably let him rest enough time and didn't rush him back early as well.
100%.
Another guy that we saw perform well this week was Derek Carr. He's the AC joint injury in the throw and shoulder. He had 183 yards, a good completion rate, and 2 touchdowns in their win. So I'm glad to see him back on the field.
You look at our data, though, 1.8 games, throwing quarterback, AC joint. He came back too early in the first game. He had a terrible first game back last week. You can see he recovered 18 for 26 and 182 yards, a couple touchdowns. But that's what our data shows. And you can see he's back and doing well, and I expect him to continue to escalate performance, fantasy owners. Derek Carr's going to escalate performance over the next several weeks.
The other quarterback coming off an injury, Joe Burrow, he had 317 yards, 3 touchdowns with a great wide receiver, Jamar Chase, catching everything on the field. Finally back in action. Is he back to the guy he's supposed to be?
Yeah, again, this is all about our data. Everyone was all scared with the carted off in preseason, the calf injury, the medial gastroc strains. They can take a long time in a reasonably mobile quarterback. It's really hard to toe off. It's really hard to push off. It's really hard to get the oomph behind the ball because all of that is on your inner big toe where you have to push off. And so having what he did with 3 touchdowns, 317 yards, I think was predicted. He had the injury, but if you look at our data, this was his week. This is when he was going to come back. And I think Joe and the Bengals are going to continue to escalate this season now that he's got the confidence on that leg and his calf has had the time to heal.
Just need to get T. Higgins back from that rib injury, and they'll be full force.
I'm fine with Jamar Chase taking all the targets, helping my fantasy team scoring the most points this season with 52 points yesterday. That insane game single-handedly won my game.
All right, tell us some bad performers this week that were on the injury list, Tyler.
Well, Kyron Williams, he had a hip injury. They came in. He said he was fine. He was going to play. He did play, but 13 carries for 53 yards. Not a great performance in fantasy. And then, of course, Jonathan Taylor, everyone was looking forward to seeing him back. He had 6 carries for 18 yards. Not a good showing for him.
Yeah, I mean, again, predicted. You get some of these guys back a little too early before the soft tissues had time to rest, before that ankles had time to heal. You get these performances. It's highly predictable. Well, that's it, everyone. Speaking of being predictable, check us out at thepredictors.com. All this stuff's there. All this information's there. We got a lot of insights to help you win.